Muscle tone is a low-level state of passive contraction that exists in all active skeletal muscles. And so, in other words, even when our muscles are at rest, there are still some cells that are contracting. And so, in order to understand muscle tone, you have to understand a motor unit. So, quick review on a motor unit. We know that a muscle, an entire muscle, a whole muscle, is made out of muscle cells or muscle fibers, and those muscle cells are grouped into bundles called fascicles. I would consider that like a structural or an anatomic arrangement. A fascicle is just a bundle of cells. When you talk about a motor unit is different than a fascicle. What it is a functional group of cells, and it's a functional group because what a motor unit is a motor neuron and all of the muscle fibers that motor neuron is controlling. So a motor unit is one motor neuron. I tried to draw that here. Here's the neuron cell body, here's the axon, and we know that the axon is going to branch off into axon terminals that synapse with muscle cells. This motor neuron and all of the muscle cells that it synapses with is what is known as a motor unit. A motor unit is a functional unit. These muscle fibers have to work together because if this motor neuron stimulates these cells, either all four of these cells are going to contract or none of them will contract. It's not possible for this motor neuron to control these cells individually. And so I drew this, simple diagram just to show what a motor unit is, the motor neuron plus all the cells that it's innervating. Typically a motor neuron would innervate more than 4 cells. Usually it would innervate, something like 100, 150 cells, so it would be much bigger. But there can be small motor units. You could have a motor neuron that controls, say, 10 cells, and it would have very precise control of those cells, like you see in movement of the eyeball. Or it could be even a larger motor unit. So for instance, in the big thigh muscles, you can see motor neurons go in and innervate hundreds of cells. And either way, if it's a small motor unit or a large motor unit, those muscle fibers are all going to contract if that neuron fires, or they're all not going to function. So a motor unit is a functional group. One more word about a motor unit. Muscle cells or muscle fibers are all innervated by only one motor neuron. And so this is a great color-coded picture. It's trying to show me that the cells that are colored red are being controlled by the red motor neuron. The cells that are blue are controlled by the blue neuron, and the purple cells are controlled by the purple neuron. And so muscle fibers don't get conflicting information, so to speak, or like multiple orders. Each muscle fiber is only innervated by one motor neuron. So back to muscle tone. Muscle tone is just the spontaneous contraction of a motor unit. So while our muscles are at rest, say if the red motor unit was contracting passively, there would be a partial state of contraction, and that's what's known as muscle tone. So as long as we use our muscles for everyday use, we have muscle tone in them. Here is an example of where muscle tone is absent. It's known as muscle atrophy, and that's due to non-use of the muscle. In this case, there was an injury that caused the atrophy. In this case, disease that caused atrophy. So in this photo, a person just got a cast removed from the leg. Can you tell which leg the cast was removed from? Black sock or white sock? You can probably see the difference between the two pretty clearly. So because the leg was immobilized, on this side, you can see the muscle lost its tone, and we call that muscle atrophy. And the opposite is true too. So when we increase use of a muscle by playing a sport or doing a certain activity, muscle tone increases.